one day, just this same girl who used to answer the phone loud as which is a North London accent, by the way, version of English. This girl answers the phone, but she left it open, she left the key open. It was a phone call from Coventry Climax, wanting some money. And she was talking on the other line to her friend. And she said, well, we don't know where the pair of them have gone, they just disappeared. They disappeared yesterday, I think they've gone to Israel. And the credit controller of Coventry Climax hears this. And he gets in his E-type, and about an hour and 20 minutes, Coventry to Chester, he's there, demanding to see Chapman Bushell, who he thought he understood had done a runner to Israel. He didn't get paid. But what I would point out is that Colin was probably the most dynamic man who ever entered the motor industry. In my knowledge. Lee Iacocca must have come pretty close. And working with him was a combination of absolute frustration and admiration. And I'll give you one point which I realised many years ago working with him. The worst form of criticism to accept is criticism that's true. So if he said that's not good enough, and you looked at it and you thought that's not good enough. And on the very first week that I was there, we jumped in 2 cars and hurtled off to have lunch, which for Colin meant driving on the sidewalk if the lights were red. We got to this restaurant, and before I joined the company, I'd been unimpressed by the fact that we had 46 old Elite body shells in stock. And I said, why don't you put the Lotus twin cam engine in and call it the Lotus Elise? Great idea. Colin had said to Ron Hickman, get on with it. And at this lunch, 4 or 5 weeks later, Colin turned to Ron Hickman and said, Ron, how's Graham's Elise coming on? Now that really upsets anybody when the new guy gets his name down. Ron says, we've almost completed the feasibility study. Now you only had to say those words to Colin, he would go absolutely raving mad. So he said, Ron, there is an Elite kit in the sales showroom, deliver it to Team Lotus and with a twin cam engine and tell them I want to be driving it by breakfast time. And Team Lotus went to work on that car, and actually Colin did drive it by lunchtime. They put the engine too far forward, the balance was upset, and years later Lotus Components put the twin cam where it should have been far too late, made a nice little car. But we could have cleared all those body shells with the Lotus Elise. But Colin tore into Ron Hickman in a way I've never seen before. Not even at Ford Motor Company, which is a pretty kick-ass organisation. And then he turned on me. 5 days in the job and said, Graham, I hold you personally responsible. Personally responsible for a letter that's in Motorsport today, criticising our quality. You are personally responsible. You'll never do it again. I said, didn't say a word. I thought, oh, as soon as we got back from lunch, I almost kicked his door down, shut it behind me, and walked across to him and said, Mr. Chapman, don't ever do that to me again. 1, that magazine is monthly. B, therefore 2 months ago, they received the letter. I've been here 5 days, so it's got bugger all to do with me. And if you think you're going to vilify me in front of other directors of this company, you've got the wrong guy. I'm going back to Ford today. But he was right. You must not let letters appear in motoring magazines that run down your product if you haven't got such a good friendship with the editor that he rings you up and says, Graham, I got this letter. Years later we launched the Lotus Quality and Reliability campaign, and we took all the editors of all the major motoring magazines out to lunch in the revolving restaurant before the IRA blew it up, some years later, probably under Lotus. But we said to them, look gentlemen, we're launching this campaign to improve our quality. You are in the position to scupper it if you start publishing articles about some guy's engine fell out. So will you at least give us the right to reply in the same issue? And they saw what we were trying to do, and they never published anything or even called us. But Colin was right. I learned a lesson. But to hell with it, I wasn't going to have it talk that way. But he was absolutely right. Now, but why Colin hated the idea of feasibility studies, someone would say, do you think the Plus 2 would take a wider wheel, Colin? He said, well, take a saw and take a wheel and see if you can get it on. So you cut the body away, put the wheel on, drive it around, see if it touched anything that was vital. If not, you get a fiberglass man to put a nice new shape on. Hey presto, you got wheels on by lunchtime. But some guy goes to his CAD cam, and a month later he's got it all worked out to the last thing, and then you put it on the car and it rubs against the brake pipes. So he was a great believer in direct development. So I went back, so the company had said to me, what car would you like? Sales director, Lotus Cars? Oh, I'll have a Cortina, please. Got a family. What colour would you like it? Oh, it's your choice. I'll have a black one. So, they said, it'll be a month or two, because Mike Costin had said to me, don't arrive in your own car or you'll never get one. So I arrived on the train, and hey presto, this car was put on order. It'd be special order because it was black. And eventually it arrived, and it was a basic 1200. No hubcaps, no chrome trim, no nothing. So I thought, well, thank you very much. You know where you stand, so I took it home and gave it to my wife. And registered a Lotus Elan and put it in my parking spot, and no one ever said a word. But the third day I was there, I was arrested. In walks the local gendarme, Mr. David Buxton, alias Mr. David Stewart, you are under arrest. I said, excuse me, he's gone, he's in Belgium. For some reason I had my passport and several people, no, he's the new sales director, only 3 days, so they went away. I was promised that I had a really full order book for the Elan. Full, so therefore I've got time to get my feet under the table. Within 5 minutes, we realised that the whole order book was a fiction, written in by David Buxton to get a lot of commissions to do a run, which he did. So therefore, in no time at all, we were producing about 5 or 6 Elans a week, nobody to sell them to, we had 10 in stock already. So we were galloping towards a cash crisis. Couldn't pay the wages. So Fred Bush said, what the hell are we going to do? I said, well, I'll have to relaunch the Elan, because the Elan was launched in the motor show of October 1962. They didn't start making them until April, May of '63. So production was coming along well, and we were building up stock of cars. So I said, I'll do a relaunch, Fred. I'll put you up a complete promotional package, advertising, sales promotion, a couple of press cars, direct mail to all the people who own Elites, and everything else we can think of, and I'll put together a package. I came out, it's going to cost about 6,000. Oh, he said, you have to put it to the board. When's the board meet? Not for another month. I said, Fred, you'll have 110 Elans by then. No, he said, you've got to wait for the board meeting. Now, at Ford Motor Company, I was sales promotion manager, one of the youngest for some reason or other, and I had to launch the Ford Classic, which was a greatly engineered car. It was a brilliant car. We didn't really need it. We needed it as a filler between the Anglia and the Consul and the Zephyr. Therefore, while the 105 Anglia was selling 987 a day, never quite made 1,000 a day, we were okay. When it dropped to about 800, we needed to bring in the Classic to keep our volume up. So therefore, they kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off, and I kept going to meetings and saying, look, this car's got a 1340cc engine. All the competition's now going from 1600 to 1700. We're going to have to launch soon. And then Sir Patrick Ellis said, okay, launch. Now, in Ford Motor Company, as in all big companies, you poach other people's budgets if they haven't been used. You persuade the head of some division that they're not using budgets in their parts division, therefore surely it can be used to paint the factory. So therefore, all my budget for launching new cars have been hijacked. We used to make films, but we didn't really. We just put in a bill for a film and put the money in one side to use up our budget. So I had to launch this car with no money at all. Now in Ford Motor Company, there's no problem. As long as you can order it, you can borrow it, you can do what you like. You haven't actually got to pay for it yet. So we launched the car. We got 3% of the market, which was just what we wanted. And I was sitting back waiting to sort of get the Purple Heart or something for a superb achievement. The road tests were good, the advertising was good, everything was going great. I get called up to headquarters to a court martial. And they march me in, sit me down. Arnold, Graham, John, yes. Joined company a year and a half ago, yes. Do you understand what budgets are? Yes, sir. Do you understand what budgetary committee approval is? Yes, sir. So why did you spend what was then probably £300,000 launching the car with no budgetary approval? I said I was told to launch the car next week. The next budgetary meeting was a month. What was I supposed to do? Tell them they couldn't launch it? And then so they said, well, this is a severe reprimand and it will be put on your records. Walk out of the meeting, start walking down the corridor, and suddenly two top men at four, one was Walter Hayes, with whom I became very friendly for many years, puts his arm around me and said, we need more people like you. So I decided that if the Lotus board meeting wasn't going to be for another month, then damn it. So I just gave the go-ahead for this little campaign. It worked absolutely as we'd hoped. God knows why, because the advert was dreadful. It looked like the land was broken down the side of the road. But it worked. I registered a couple of press cars and we got those out to the press. And that started my fixation with top quality road tests. Lotus never had a bad road test, or even a qualified road test, in any British magazine while I was at that company. We absolutely lived and died by quality road tests with journalists that we knew personally as friends. And it worked. If anybody hasn't read, I'll send you a copy. I lent an Elan to Dennis Jenkinson of Motorsport, their foreign Grand Prix correspondent, one of the most respected writers before he died some years ago. The deal with Dennis was you can take the car all the way to Sicily for the Formula 2 race and bring it all the way back. If it breaks, dump it. We'll fly you home, nothing said. And Dennis said, that's the deal. He said, I'm taking bets in the office. I believe we call it spread bets as to how far I get. Anyway, Dennis came back and he said, I have never had so much fun in my life. You want to read my article? Journey to Sicily by Dennis Jenkinson ends up by saying, sell the washing machine, sell the television, sell the dishwasher, send the wife out to work, buy a Lotus Elan, every man should have one. Now, you can write an advertisement that says we make the best sports car in the world, we make the most reliable, the most fun, which is great. Pay a copywriter, he'll write what you want. Get a spin doctor, he'll spin anyway. But when one of the most respected motoring journalists, smack in the middle of what was then our market, says something like that, we didn't need brochures, we just needed reprints. And the result of that little £6,000 relaunch, a professional automobile marketing man's relaunch, nothing gimmicky, just good quality merchandising and marketing, meant that we got enough orders for me to now take off and try and sell abroad. But this time, the staff that I got didn't like me very much because I was pushing around a bit. And the previous but one sales manager, because there's a big revolving door at Lotus, which has got out on both sides, at the staff entrance, they said, you really should go to America. You've got to go to the States. You should go to the States to launch the Elan over there because it'd be a good thing to do. You'd get rid of me. What I didn't know was the previous guy, the one, had gone to America, got no orders, and got back and was sacked. And they'd hoped that I would go to America, get no orders, come back and be sacked, and they could go back to their growing.